Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at ePortfolios and
Yeah.
all the exciting ways they're kind of shaking up how we think about assessing students.
Assessment, yeah.
You guys sent in some really fascinating research, and one that really stood out was a piece by
Okay.
Dr. Kishmira, Dave, and Kate Mitchell. They had a piece in the Journal of University Teaching and
Right.
Learning Practice. So let's jump in. What really struck me was how
Yeah.
the whole concept of flexible assessment, it feels like it needs an update, you know?
Absolutely. It really does. Especially now with, the digital age and AI
Oh, yeah.
becoming so central to everything we do.
Huge.
Yeah.
How do you think that's reshaping how we even define what flexible assessment is?
Well, it's not just about, offering different kinds of tests or assignments anymore.
Right.
It's really about understanding and meeting the diverse needs of each student.
I see.
And this really connects with ideas like the Universal Design for Learning guidelines,
Oh, yeah.
which, it's all about making learning accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And it also links to Bood's concept of sustainable assessment, which is
Ah.
about preparing students for lifelong learning.
So giving them skills they can use beyond just the classroom.
Exactly. It's
Oh,
about learning that sticks with you.
yeah. Yeah. So how do e-portfolios fit into all of this? How do they actually help us create that kind of learning experience?
Well, ePortfolios are really key to this whole vision of flexible assessment
Okay.
because they give students a way to show their learning in a way that traditional methods just can't.
It's like going beyond just grades and seeing a fuller picture of what a student can do.
Exactly. It's a much more comprehensive and dynamic representation of their abilities.
So we're not just talking about showcasing finished work here.
No, not at all.
It seems like ePortfolios also help students reflect on their own learning process.
Absolutely. They encourage students to think about their progress and identify areas where they can grow.
That's really interesting, that self-reflection piece.
Yeah.
It seems like ePortfolios can help students become more aware of their own learning styles.
Yeah, and how they learn best,
Hmm.
which is incredibly valuable.
So how can we actually use ePortfolios to make assessments more flexible in practice?
Right. So the research talks about a few key strategies.
Okay.
And one of the most important ones is fostering authenticity and meaning.
Meaning, okay. So
Mhm.
how do we do that? How do we make assessments feel relevant?
It's all about connecting assessment to the real world and to each student's individual goals.
Okay.
So a great example of this is having students develop a professional philosophy statement
I like that.
as part of their ePortfolio.
Yeah, making them think about what they want to do, what their values are.
Exactly. It encourages them to think about their values, their experiences,
Right.
and how those shape their professional aspirations.
That's a great way to bridge the gap between school and what comes after.
Exactly.
The article even had a sample template for a professional philosophy statement.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes for you guys.
Awesome.
Another strategy the article mentions is encouraging what they call multimodal expression. Yes.
What does that mean?
So it means allowing students to go beyond just traditional text-based assignments.
Okay.
So in their ePortfolios, they can express themselves through videos, images, audio recordings,
I see.
really anything that can showcase their learning in a way that makes sense to them.
That's amazing, especially for students who might not thrive in like a traditional written test or essay format.
Exactly. It allows them to play to their strengths.
The article actually highlighted a really cool example from the University of Melbourne,
Oh, yeah.
where students could choose how they wanted to present their acknowledgement of country.
I like that.
Some wrote it out, while others created these incredible multimedia presentations.
That's powerful.
Yeah, giving students that choice, it really makes a
It
difference.
really does. It recognizes that students learn and express themselves in different ways.
So it's not just about giving them choices, though, right? It's
Yeah.
about actually designing the assessments in a way that encourages that creativity.
And encourages them to think critically about how to best represent what they've learned.
Absolutely.
So we've got authenticity, we've got multimodal expression. What else is important when we're thinking about using ePortfolios for this kind of flexible assessment?
Well, another key strategy is to create opportunities for developmental reflection and self-assessment.
Okay, so thinking about growth over time.
Exactly.
Because ePortfolios aren't static, they evolve as students learn and develop.
This reminds me of Bood's idea of sustainable assessment, where the focus is on equipping students with skills and mindsets for lifelong learning.
Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about.
It's not just about getting a good grade on a single assignment.
Right.
It's about continuous improvement.
The article mentions a good example of this in practice. the Nursing Standards Self-Assessment tool in PebblePad.
Oh, yeah, PebblePad.
Have you used that?
I have. It's a great platform.
So this tool allows nursing students to assess their own skills against professional standards.
Yeah, it's amazing they can actually track their progress throughout their program.
See where they're doing well and maybe where they need more focus,
Exactly. And it helps them become more self-aware of their own learning process.
which is so important for anyone, but especially when you're going into a field like nursing.
Absolutely.
So ePortfolios can really facilitate that kind of continuous improvement.
And they do that through another key element, interaction and feedback.
Okay, so it's not just a one-way street.
No, not at all. ePortfolios create a space for dialogue between students and instructors.
I imagine that could also be a great opportunity for multimodal feedback as well,
You're right. Instead of just written comments, instructors could give audio or video feedback
which would be so much more engaging for students.
and more personalized.
Yeah.
It can help to create a stronger connection between the student and the instructor.
That ties back into the universal design for learning, right? Providing those multiple means of engagement.
Absolutely. It's about making learning more accessible and meaningful for every student.
This is really exciting stuff. We're talking about a shift from a one-size-fits-all approach to teaching to something much more inclusive and student-centered.
Exactly. It's about empowering students to take ownership of their learning.
This has been so insightful. We've covered so much ground already.
I know, right? And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore when it comes to the potential of ePortfolios.
Before we move on, though,
Sure.
I want to touch on one more benefit that really stood out to me. The way ePortfolios can support long-term growth.
Yes. That's one of the most powerful aspects of ePortfolios.
They don't just reflect a student's learning in a single course.
Right.
They can actually become tools for professional development and personal growth well after graduation.
Absolutely. They can help students tell their story.
The research mentions a fantastic example, Stephen Nichols's portfolio. He created it as part of a contest at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
And his portfolio was chosen as an exemplary example. And it's easy to see why.
It's beautifully done.
It showcases his creativity, his growth as a learner, and his personal reflections.
It's really inspiring.
What impressed me was that he didn't just create this static collection of work.
Right.
He went back and reflected on previous projects to show how his understanding had evolved.
It's a great example of how ePortfolios can become living documents.
Yeah, they really capture that intellectual and creative journey over time.
Exactly.
It really emphasizes how ePortfolios can go beyond just assessment and become valuable tools for lifelong learning.
Couldn't agree more.
It encourages students to see learning as this continuous process that doesn't end when they graduate.
That's the goal, right?
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the amazing benefits.
Yeah, lots of positives.
But it's important to acknowledge that there are also some challenges and things to consider when we're talking about using ePortfolios.
Of course, no new approach is without its challenges.
So what are some of the hurdles that educators and institutions might face?
Well, the research breaks it down into two main categories, logistical and pedagogical.
Okay, so on the logistical side, what are we talking about? What are some of the practical considerations?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is choosing the right platform for ePortfolio development.
Right, there are so many different options out there.
There are, each with its own pros and cons.
So institutions need to carefully consider their needs and resources before they jump in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't want to invest in a platform that ends up being too complicated.
Or that doesn't have the features you need.
Exactly. And another logistical challenge is managing the time commitment
Okay,
for both students and faculty.
because creating and maintaining these ePortfolios, it can be time-consuming.
It can be, especially if they're being used across multiple courses.
Right. So how do we make sure that ePortfolios don't become this extra burden for everyone?
Well, providing adequate training and support for faculty is really important.
Okay.
They need to feel comfortable using the platform and confident in their ability to guide students.
So professional development is key.
Absolutely. And institutions might also consider offering release time for faculty to really focus on ePortfolio integration.
Those are great suggestions. It sounds like collaboration is really important for addressing these logistical challenges.
It's essential.
Okay, so we've got logistics, but what about the pedagogical side of things? What are some of the challenges there?
Well, one major concern is ensuring that assessments within ePortfolios are valid and reliable.
Of course. We want to make sure that these assessments are actually measuring what they're supposed to measure.
Exactly. And we need to be thoughtful about how we design assessments that allow for flexibility and creativity.
While still maintaining academic rigor.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
The research also mentioned digital literacy as a potential challenge.
Yes, and that's a big one.
Yeah.
We need to support both students and faculty
Okay.
in developing the skills they need to use ePortfolios effectively.
So offering workshops or tutorials.
Exactly, or online resources to help them navigate the platform, create multimedia content, and engage in online reflection and feedback.
It sounds like we need a really well-planned approach to ePortfolio implementation.
We do, and it needs to involve everyone.
Faculty, students, administrators, tech support teams.
The whole community.
This has been so insightful. We've really dug deep into the world of ePortfolios and how they can be used for flexible assessment.
It's been a great discussion.
And for our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some new ideas to think about.
Yes, lots to consider.
If you're an educator, maybe consider how you could use ePortfolios in your courses to make them more flexible and student-centered.
It's worth exploring for sure.
And if you're a student, don't be afraid to advocate for this kind of assessment. It could really change your learning experience for the better.
Absolutely.
Now, as you delve deeper into the world of ePortfolios, we want to leave you with this thought-provoking question. What are the ethical considerations, particularly around data privacy and ownership, that come with using ePortfolios? It's something to ponder as this technology continues to evolve.
It's a really important question. Yeah, it's a huge issue and one we need to really think carefully about as we move forward with ePortfolios.
For sure. So we've talked about some of the key strategies for using ePortfolios effectively,
Yeah.
but let's look at some specific examples.
Okay, sounds good.
Things that are actually happening out there in the real world.
Yeah, real world examples.
One that stood out to me was the professional philosophy template we were talking about earlier.
Right.
It seems like such a practical tool,
It is.
something that educators can really use
Yeah.
right away
Absolutely.
to help their students develop those professional philosophy statements.
It gives them a great starting point.
I actually looked at the template, and it's really well designed.
Yeah, it is.
There are clear prompts that guide students to reflect on their experiences, their values, their goals.
Yeah, it helps them think about those big questions.
Exactly. It's not just some random assignment. It's something that really connects to who they are.
Right. It connects to their values and their aspirations.
And that's what makes it so powerful, I
Oh,
think.
absolutely. When students see the relevance of what they're doing, they're much more likely to be engaged and motivated.
For sure. Another example that I found really interesting was the portfolio of Emmanuel Maces.
Oh, yeah, from Portland State University.
Yeah. Have you seen his portfolio?
I have. It's amazing.
It's so well done, and it really showcases both his academic accomplishments and his creative side.
He's got such a great eye for design, too.
It's beautifully designed, and he's included such a variety of things like academic papers,
Right.
multimedia presentations. He even has a guiding principles page
Oh, wow.
where he lays out his whole educational philosophy.
That's fantastic.
It really shows how students can use ePortfolios to tell their own unique stories.
Exactly. It's not just about meeting the requirements.
Right.
It's about expressing who they are.
And again, we see that emphasis on multimodal expression.
Yes,
It
definitely.
goes way beyond just text.
It's a much richer, more dynamic way to show what you've learned.
The research also talks about how some universities are really embracing flexibility
Yeah.
and building it right into their assessment methods. That's great. There's a case study from the University of Melbourne where students could choose
Okay.
how they wanted to present their acknowledgement of country.
I remember that one. That's a fantastic example.
Some students chose to write it out,
Wait,
while others did these amazing multimedia presentations.
it really shows respect for different learning styles.
Exactly. It recognizes that students express themselves in different ways.
And that's so important for creating a truly inclusive learning environment.
It also aligns really well with the principles of universal design for learning.
Absolutely. Multiple means of action and expression.
So it's not just about having different types of tests. It's about creating an environment
Right.
where students can really show their understanding.
In a way that's authentic to them.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about another key strategy for using ePortfolios. Creating opportunities for developmental reflection
Yes, this is crucial.
and self-assessment,
ePortfolios are a fantastic tool for this.
because they allow students to track their progress, reflect on their growth, and figure out where they need to focus.
It's like having a mirror to your learning process.
The article mentioned a great example. The nursing standard self-assessment in PebblePad.
Oh, yeah. PebblePad is great for this kind of thing.
So nursing students can use this tool to assess their own skills
Right.
and compare them to professional standards,
It helps them see where they stand.
and they can monitor their progress throughout their whole program.
It's all about self-directed learning
Yeah, becoming more aware of how you learn,
and taking ownership of your development.
which is so important, especially in a field like nursing.
Absolutely. Where continuous learning is essential.
And of course, ePortfolios also support another crucial part of learning: interaction and feedback.
Right. It's not just a solo endeavor.
They create a space for that back and forth between students and instructors.
It's about creating a dialogue.
And I think that's where the potential for multimodal feedback gets really exciting.
Oh, yeah, totally. Imagine getting feedback not just in writing,
Right.
but through audio or video messages.
It would be so much more personalized.
And engaging. You could hear your instructor's tone of voice,
Yeah.
see their facial expressions.
It would make the feedback so much more meaningful.
It would create a stronger connection between the student and the instructor.
And again, it ties back to that universal design for learning principle of providing multiple means of engagement.
Absolutely. It's about making learning more accessible and engaging for everyone.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the benefits of ePortfolios,
Yeah, there's so many.
but it's important to be realistic and acknowledge that there are also some potential downsides.
Right. It's not all sunshine and roses.
What are some of the things that we need to be cautious about?
Well, one concern is the potential for increased workload
Oh,
for both students and faculty.
yeah, I can see that.
Creating and maintaining ePortfolios, especially if they involve a lot of multimedia or frequent reflection,
Right.
it can be pretty time-consuming.
So institutions need to be mindful of that.
Yeah. They need to provide enough support and resources so it doesn't become an overwhelming burden.
For sure.
Mhm.
Another issue is the digital divide.
Oh, absolutely. We can't assume that all students have equal access to technology or the skills they need to use it effectively.
That's a really important point. We need to address those inequalities.
And provide support for students who might need help with technology access or digital literacy.
There's also the issue of assessment validity and reliability.
Right, with so much flexibility and choice.
Yeah.
It can be a challenge to ensure that assessments are standardized and actually measuring what they should be measuring.
So we need to be really thoughtful about how we design those assessments.
Absolutely. We want to make sure that they're both rigorous and fair.
And then there are the ethical considerations
Mhm.
around things like data privacy and ownership.
As ePortfolios become more widespread, we need to make sure that student data is protected.
Absolutely. And that students have control over their own work.
It's all about finding the right balance between flexibility and responsibility.
So it sounds like successful ePortfolio implementation really requires a thoughtful and well-planned approach.
It does. It's not something you can just jump into without careful consideration.
We need to think about the pedagogical benefits, but also the potential challenges and ethical implications.
Exactly. It's about taking a holistic view.
This deep dive has been so informative. It's given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on where you see ePortfolios going in the future of education.
That's a great question.
Do you think they have the potential to really transform how we assess students?
I think they absolutely do. I think ePortfolios are really well aligned with the principles of student-centered learning,
Okay.
personalized education, and lifelong learning.
So as technology continues to evolve
Right.
and educators become more familiar with ePortfolios.
I think we'll see a real shift away from those traditional standardized assessments.
Okay.
And we'll move towards more authentic, flexible, and personalized approaches.
That really empowers students.
Exactly. ePortfolios give students a voice and agency in their own learning.
That's a really exciting vision.
It is. It's about recognizing and celebrating the unique talents and abilities of each student.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Sure.
I want to touch on something that the research really emphasized: the importance of collaboration.
Yes. Collaboration is key when it comes to ePortfolios.
So how can institutions foster that kind of collaborative environment?
Well, I think a good starting point is to have a shared vision and goals for ePortfolio implementation.
Okay, so everyone's on the same page from the start.
Exactly. What are you hoping to achieve with ePortfolios? How will they enhance teaching and learning?
Right. What are the expectations for faculty and students?
Answering those questions up front helps to create a clear roadmap for everyone.
Makes sense. And then what? Once you have that shared vision.
Then it's all about providing training and support for both faculty and students.
Okay.
Faculty need to feel comfortable using the ePortfolio platform and confident in their ability to guide students. And students also need support with things like technology access, digital literacy skills, and understanding the expectations.
So it's not just about providing the technology, it's about providing the support.
Exactly. Institutions might consider offering workshops, tutorials, peer mentoring programs, or online resources.
Those are great ideas.
Yeah.
What about communication and feedback?
Oh, communication is crucial. Institutions should create spaces for ongoing dialogue and feedback.
Okay.
Set up steering committees, working groups, or online forums.
So faculty, students, and staff can all share their ideas.
Exactly. It's about creating a community of practice around ePortfolios.
I like that. And it's important to gather data on how those ePortfolio initiatives are working.
Yes. We need to track our progress and make adjustments as we go.
So it's an ongoing process of evaluation and improvement.
Exactly. Implementing ePortfolios is a journey, not a destination.
This deep dive has been so valuable. We've learned so much about ePortfolios and their potential to change the way we think about assessment.
It's been a great conversation.
And to our listeners, we hope this has inspired you to think about how ePortfolios could fit into your own learning or teaching.
Yes, definitely.
If you're an educator, consider how you might integrate ePortfolios into your courses to make them more engaging and student-centered.
It's worth exploring for sure.
And if you're a student, don't hesitate to speak up about this kind of assessment approach.
Right. Your voice matters.
It can really make a difference in your educational journey.
Absolutely. Now, as we move towards the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we want to leave you with a question to ponder. How can we ensure that ePortfolios are used not just for assessment,
Right.
but to truly empower learners
To help them become more self-directed, more engaged?
and more passionate about lifelong learning?
It really is about shifting our mindset,
Mm,
moving away from just measuring
yeah,
and thinking more about how we can actually help students grow.
absolutely. It's about supporting their development, not just evaluating them.
And the research highlighted some really inspiring examples
Oh, yeah.
of how ePortfolios can support that kind of long-term growth and reflection.
Okay, yeah.
Even after students graduate,
I'm all ears.
one that really stood out to me was Stephen Nichols' portfolio.
Oh, right. The one from the Melbourne Graduate School of Education.
Yeah, he created it for a contest they had.
I remember that.
And his portfolio was chosen as an exemplary example, and it's easy to see why.
What made it so special?
Well, first of all, it's just beautifully done.
Yeah.
It really showcases his creativity and his personal growth,
Okay.
and his reflections on his own learning are really insightful.
I like that. What else stood out to you?
Well, what really impressed me was that he didn't just put together this static collection of work.
Right.
He actually went back and reflected on his earlier projects
Oh, wow.
to show how his thinking had changed over time.
So it's like a living document.
Exactly. And he even brought in work from previous courses
Okay.
to create this really cohesive story about his development.
I love that. It shows that learning isn't just confined to one course.
Exactly. It's all connected.
It's about building on what you've learned.
And ePortfolios can really help students see those connections.
Yeah, they can track their progress, see how far they've come.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And it really highlights how ePortfolios can go beyond just assessment
Right.
and become these valuable tools for lifelong learning.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I think the big takeaway for me is that ePortfolios have this incredible potential
Yeah.
to transform the way we think about assessment.
They can really shake things up.
They encourage reflection, they support
Mhm.
deeper learning,
Mm-hmm.
and they really put students at the center of their own learning journey.
Which is what it's all about, right?
Exactly. So for our listeners out there,
Yeah.
we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Lots to chew on.
If you're an educator, maybe consider how you might integrate ePortfolios into your own teaching.
It's worth experimenting with.
And if you're a student, don't be afraid to advocate for this kind of assessment,
Speak up.
Ah.
Your voice matters.
because it could really make a difference in your educational experience.
Absolutely.
We've explored so much in this deep dive.
I know, right? From the theoretical underpinnings
Yeah.
to practical strategies.
And inspiring real-world examples.
ePortfolios are such a rich and fascinating topic.
They really are. And we've just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to learn and discover.
So we encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions
Yeah, and keep pushing the boundaries.
of what's possible in education.
That's what it's all about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of ePortfolios and flexible assessment.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.